Yeah, this is the Coin Flip Podcast episode a gazillion. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. We're about 6 days away from Christmas when we are recording this, and the NFL is really shaping up. The NBA is starting to come alive, and we are ready to talk about it once again. Jacob and Martin. I'm Jacob. Martin, we are doing this once again remotely. 2,000 miles plus away from each other. You're still in St. George. I am in the small town of Hampton, Iowa. Martin, what's going on?
Not much, not much. Just, another day in the sports world, just hanging out, having fun.
All right, we want to kick this thing off. We're going to also talk about some World Cup there at the end. Forgot to mention that. How could we not? But let's get things started off with the NFL, of course. Martin, we were talking about who's in and who's out. We're going to start with the AFC. Relating to the playoff picture, we are, let's see, most teams are about 14 games through, 3 games to go, and this is where things start really heating up. Martin, we've talked midseason, we've talked preseason, we have covered the NFL, we've given our predictions, and while some of them have been accurate, some of them have been god-awful, but enough with the predictions. Let's kind of give almost some more predictions about how we think this season will end. Martin, right now, currently in the AFC, the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, Titans, Ravens, Chargers, and Dolphins are all in, with the Patriots, Jets, Jags, and Raiders, and even the Browns and Steelers all on the outside with maybe a slight chance to get in. Martin, when we are looking at this list, are there any people who are you going to pull from who are already in the playoffs and replace them with a team that is on the outside looking in? With the AFC, let's start with the AFC. Martin, what do you think is going to happen?
This is going to get a little interesting. I couldn't tell you really. This battle between the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Jets, the Jags, the Raiders, the Browns, the Steelers, all competing for, 3 spots, considering, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Titans have already locked up basically their divisions, minus the Titans, who could be in a battle with the Jags over this division title. So I don't think anybody ever saw that coming this season. I'll say that for a fact. If the Jacksonville Jaguars could make the playoffs, what a comeback that they had yesterday. If I'm rooting for a team specifically, it's probably the Jets. I don't mind seeing the Jets and seeing what they could do. Robert Saleh's finally got that team in the right direction where he wants to go with it. They got Mike White, who's trying to get cleared by doctors to get back on the football field. They did lose to the Lions yesterday. Zach Wilson is obviously not a good quarterback or doesn't want to try to be a good quarterback. So Mike White is really, their only solid option at quarterback. And if he can get back healthy, I think they're the team that might sneak in. The Dolphins, they had themselves, a battle with the Buffalo. The Chargers had to come back yesterday, Baltimore. And I think this battle is going to come down to determination of which team just gets hot at the right time. And I could see a good amount of teams. This is going to be fun to see what happens at the end of the season.
Martin, okay. Realistically here, the teams that have a shot are the Jaguars, Jets, and the Patriots. I don't think I don't think the Chargers will slip out. I don't think the Ravens will slip out either. But the Dolphins are the team that could, because they're playing the Patriots and the Jets in their last 2 games. Martin, the Jets have the Jaguars, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins. Those are all relatively, games that you have a shot in. If you put a bullet to my head, or if you put a gun to my head, Martin, I would say the 7 that are in are the 7 that would stay. I think the Dolphins can hang on, but they're on the downward slide right now. They are not looking that great, but so are the Jets. The Jets have lost their last 3, so I don't know. The Patriots, it would be really tough for them to recover from that god-awful mistake they had. But here he comes. Trevor Lawrence is starting to shake up, and the Jags will finish their schedule with the Jets, with the Texans, and the Titans. So there actually is a route for the Jacksonville Jaguars to get in. Potentially, they could finish 9-8. But if you had to put me to one, I would go with the Dolphins. Martin, let's now go to the NFC. The Eagles, the Vikings, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Bucks, Giants, and Washington are all in. And Martin, this could very well be a case of we have, for the first time in NFL history, 4 teams from one division getting all into the playoffs. That's how it's currently set up. And the teams that could throw a wrench in that would be the Lions and the Seahawks, both at 7-7. Martin, when you're looking at these squads, where are you going?
You know, it would be a little homer of me to pick the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm from Chicago. I'm a Bears fan. I'm wearing a Chicago Bears sweater, but I do have family that are from Michigan, and they're huge Detroit Lions fans. And they've, obviously they've seen them go to the playoffs a couple times, but do nothing in the playoffs. So if I had to pick a spoiler, it is the Detroit Lions. I mean, I've seen what Seattle has done, but they're back on a little bit of a downslope. Geno Smith is kind of going back to what Geno Smith was prior to his roar he had at the first part of the season. Washington, they had a battle with New York. Washington will say that, they got robbed at the very end. There was no pass interference called. The Giants will point towards a bunch of other things that happened in the game and say, no, you guys were right where you guys are supposed to be. I feel like Detroit's the most complete team. I think they are the better team. If you had to make me pick between Washington, Seattle, and Detroit, I think Detroit's the better team because they've won 6 of their last 7. And the one game they did lose against Buffalo, they should have won if they would have just protected on that third down play better. They would have beaten the Buffalo Bills, who we consider one of the best teams in the league. So I really do see Detroit as the true answer out of all of this. I don't know if Washington can get their stuff together. I don't know if the Giants will truly finish out like this. Seattle is up and down with me. I think Detroit's the only team that is solid enough to make the playoffs. And that's funny to say about the Detroit Lions because we do not say that about them often at all.
So the Lions, I believe, looking at it, they could finish out 2-1 and finish 9-8. I think that could happen. Martin, I think the Seattle Seahawks could also finish out 9-8. With wins over the Jets and Rams in the last 2 weeks, but they have the Chiefs, who are a 9.5-point favorite, coming up on Christmas Eve. This is just all going to be really interesting. I don't think Washington can make it in. I think I actually have to agree with you. I think the Lions can squeeze in, and it would be a great feel-good story after starting 1-6, 1-5, or whatever they started.
1-6.
As for the who's actually in, Martin, Tom Brady's going to get into the playoffs, and he is going to be matched up against let's just call it what it is. He's not going to be matched up against a good quarterback, right? He could be matched up against maybe Brock Purdy. Maybe it's Dak. Dak's the best quarterback he would face.
Well, right now, if the playoffs...
Jones?
Sorry to cut you off, Jay. If the playoffs were to start today, Tampa and Dallas would be the matchup. The 49ers would get, I believe, 49.
Okay. I could see the Cowboys winning in that matchup, Martin. But outside of that, the Bucks are definitely beating the Giants, Washington. Maybe they'll beat the 49ers. It's all interesting. But, Martin, do you have anything else to add for the playoff race? Who's in, who's out? We can revisit this when the playoffs start and give our playoff predictions, but as far as who is going to squeeze in and likely get bounced in round 1, any other comments to have?
No, I think that's pretty much it, bud.
I will add that my Panthers somehow still have a shot.
Well, yeah, that's pretty. I'm sorry, that's just kind of funny. That's all. The NFC South is
the other NFL thing, Martin, that we had to talk about is the Minnesota Vikings comeback.
Oh yeah.
As we head into segment 2 in the NFL. Martin, the Minnesota Vikings pulled off the largest comeback in National Football League history
Yep.
on Saturday. I woke up on Saturday. I had no idea there was NFL games that were going to happen until I checked my phone. It was a pleasant surprise. And what was a surprise midway through this game, 33 to nothing at the half. Martin, I'm beginning to think that somehow, some way, my mind can almost predict the outcomes of certain things when it puts when it does not put effort into betting. It can predict the outcomes. For example, like the Lakers had a big comeback against the Celtics, primetime game, and I'm like, you know what if I turn the game on, I'm like, you know what if the Lakers just came back into this game? Sure enough, they do. They come all the way back, take the lead, and I'm thinking, what if the Lakers end up choke this game? And sure enough, they choke it. Martin, the same thing happened with this game. I remember thinking, what if the Vikings were to come all the way back and break the record? Martin, they did it. I couldn't believe my phone when I checked it again. Incredible stuff. Justin Jefferson is that dude. He's the best receiver now in the National Football League. Kirk Cousins has earned a lot of respect this season, although he's still getting clowned in the comments of social media. Man, the Vikings. Perhaps the Minnesota Vikings are the most difficult team to project in the playoffs and bet on in the playoffs this year because of games like what we just saw. But I'll say their offense is really well rounded. Martin, is there a better trio in the league right now than Cousins, Dalvin Cook, and Justin Jefferson at your quarterback, running back, receiver spot?
I would say maybe Isaiah McKenzie, Kelsey, and Mahomes could argue for that case.
McKinnon.
McKinnon.
If Kelsey's a receiver, then
you could say probably, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy right now. That's a good trio right there. Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf. That's another trio right there. I see your point on it. They are a dominant trio. They are a dominant team. Here's the thing on it, Jacob. I'm going to be the other side of this coin. I'm going to be a little bit of a negative Nancy. It is a great comeback for the Minnesota Vikings. It's the biggest comeback in NFL history, given the 93 Oilers off the hook after they blew a 32-point lead, 35-3, to the Buffalo Bills in the 93 playoffs in the wild card round. And Jacob corrected me before we went on the show about the score. I thought it was 35-10, but nonetheless, the point is, I'm going to be this way, and that is, I'm not going to give the Minnesota Vikings the credit they deserve on this comeback because the second half showed exactly what we should have seen in the first half, which was the Indianapolis Colts are a terrible football team and the Minnesota Vikings are a dominant football team, but yet the Minnesota Vikings made so many terrible mistakes in the first half that they let the Indianapolis Colts get to a head 33-0 by halftime. And it took a second half, a game-time field goal, and a game-winning field goal to earn all of that back before what they lost in the first half. Now, yes, they deserve credit for the comeback, but they don't deserve like this award as if they were some underdog team and they up and roared, came back in the game against a dominant opponent. You did this against the Jeff Saturday Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they look worse than most varsity high school football teams. They are a laughing joke in the NFL. At least the Houston Texans put up a fight. The Indianapolis Colts just lay over and die. And you do that? I mean,
Martin, and I'm being genuine when I say this, Martin, I think you made one of your best takes you've ever had on the Coin Flip podcast. I think that's a really good take that you had, that perhaps this come from behind NFL setting comeback record is actually more of a negative for the Vikings than it actually is a positive, because why were they ever in that situation? I think that's a good take. However, maybe there's a little bit of Kansas City Patrick Mahomes in this Minnesota Vikings team, for instance, that they can be behind and then all of a sudden they can turn it on. They don't have it, looks like they're out of it, boom, all of a sudden they turn it on. That's kind of a positive that you can take with you. You can almost look at it either way, depending on if you're a fan of this team, if you hate this team. Martin, I was there in person in the stadium for game one of the season, so I am rooting for the Vikings this year with my putrid Carolina Panthers in their situations. But that's about all I have to say with the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson, he has 336 yards to go, I believe. I don't know if he's going to quite get there. I think other defenses are really going to just key on him, and there's even a chance that he just sits out week 17.
Possibility. You never know what's going to happen down the road. That's a good possibility. We'll see what happens.
All right, Martino, let's move on to the NBA segment now, shall we? The one I've been waiting for. Two topics on the board for today in the NBA chunk of the podcast. Martin, we're going to start this off we'll go bad news to good news. So we're going to start with the Warriors first. The Golden State Warriors coming into this season were thought of either one or two ways. They were thought of, this team is set up to repeat, go back to back. Steph Curry's still in his prime. Wiggins has emerged. Klay Thompson is still putting up decent numbers. Draymond didn't have a great series, and they still won. Jordan Poole looks like the future. Kuminga's there. Moses Moody. James Wiseman has some rough patches, but at least he got a ring. And then there was the other side of it, Martin, where a lot of people were thinking, man, there's no way Golden State repeats what they did last year. And the latter of those two has been true, but it has been because of injuries. And now you can pull the old Laker haters take by saying, oh, well, of course that this is what was going to happen. They're injury prone. Steph's injury prone, like people would say with AD. Martin, I think it's unfortunate for Golden State Warrior fans. They don't deserve this. They don't deserve to have 3 out of the last 4 seasons now go to waste because of injury. But I do a little sports trivia segment for my job every day at 12:30, and one of the questions was surrounding Steph Curry. Martin, the question was, Steph Curry missed 18 games last season. How many games did the Warriors win in the 2022 regular season? Keep in mind, this is the year they won the title. Martin, how many games did they win last year of the 18 games that Steph Curry missed? How many do you think they won?
I remember I saw this stat, and I believe it was 0.
No, they went 8-10 last year.
8-10. Well, I'm an idiot.
They went 8-10 last year through 18 games. I don't think there's any way they do. I don't even know if they match that, Martin. Because this team looks just as lost with Curry. So it's not looking good for the Warriors. Martin, my point being, they're going to miss about 3-4 weeks of Steph Curry. How many games is that? Well, let's say it's a month. Martin, that's like 10, 12 games right there.
Just about.
Let's call it 12. Martin, they are going 4-8 through 12 games. They're already under 500. Point being, with this injury, I don't know if the Golden State Warriors are going to make the playoffs. Now, can they make the play-in? Probably. Maybe find a way to win a play-in game and 2 or there, maybe squeak in. But it's not looking good for the Golden State Warriors. Anytime you're a shooter, you want to have your shoulders healthy. I know it's not his shooting shoulder, but it's still his left shoulder. It's a factor in his squaring up to the basket. Curry is the best shooter ever. I would think the second top 2 offensive player in the league right now, but Clay's been doing all right. Jordan Poole had 40 plus last night, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
So I found an interesting stat out there with Steph Curry on and off the court. With him on the court, their offensive efficiency is 118. Their net efficiency is +7. Their 3-point shooting percentage is 40%. and their quality shot probabilities is above 57%. When he's off the court, their efficiency is down to 99%. Their net efficiency is negative 11. Their field goal percentage from the three-point line is down to 33. And their quality shot probability goes down to 52. So what you brought up, Jacob, points into the direction of, yeah, this team is going to suck. This team isn't really going to go anywhere. This team doesn't have it together. It really is that point right there. This team does not have it. But I think this is a good thing, Jacob, in the sense that if you're going to get the kids, the young guns, any true time to develop through a mid-season where there's not a whole lot of pressure on them to do anything, this is the perfect moment for that. This is the perfect moment for Wiseman and for Poole and for Mooney and for Kuminga, for all the young guns to show that they will be the next regime to take the throne when Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond hands it off. Because Draymond at this point is just hanging around because of his contract. He really doesn't offer that much anymore. He did offer a lot in the playoffs and in the finals, but he's on the back end of his career. Klay just doesn't look like the same defender. He does still have that shooting ability, but he's not the same defender he was prior to his injuries. And Curry is starting to slow down just a touch, but I think the Warriors aren't done yet. I just think they're going to go through a rough patch. I think, obviously, with the play-in, they'll make that. I think they're a good, solid choice for that. But I don't think they're done in the sense that they're going to be either trying to go for the lottery or trying to fight for a play-in spot. I think they're a guaranteed play-in spot. I just think they're just going to go through a rough stretch.
Martin, now let's transition over into the latter half of our NBA segment. We're talking about the New Orleans Pelicans. Martin, they are currently the 1 seed in the West, and I'm looking at player efficiency rating. Martin, Zion Williamson is 9th in the league in PER. I believe he was 4th his last full season healthy, which is incredible. Zion Williamson has been skyrocketing up the MVP odds in the NBA like crazy. Brandon Ingram has not played in a while, I believe, as well. And CJ McCollum has seen better basketball that he can one day get back to, I believe, even now, perhaps in a playoff game. The difference is this. We got to give credit to what the New Orleans Pelicans have done since they traded Anthony Davis. They could have very well been the team that got sold and sent to Seattle and became the superstar. Like, we cannot underestimate that the Pelicans were going to be the team that perhaps, went to Vegas or to Seattle, became a new franchise because they were that bad and that irrelevant without AD. Then they happen to get Zion Williamson. They get the number 1 pick. Brandon Ingram starts looking good. They get, a good return for Lonzo Ball. And then they started drafting really well. Martin, Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones are nightmares on defense. And have Jonas Valanciunas to tag along on the squad, who I love as a role player, who's, became a stretch 5 out of nowhere, who's tough as nails. Martin, this Pelicans squad is very sneaky. They're very sneaky, and I saw it last year in that first round of the playoffs, and I'm like, oh man, this team is coming. They are doing it well without Zion. Williamson had another block like he had in college, where point guard is on the wing or top of the key. He kicks it to a guy open in the corner, wide open. Zion Williamson still has a foot in the paint when the ball is caught in the corner. He blocks the 3-point shot. Are you kidding me? That can only be done by 3 guys in the league. Him, Giannis, I don't know, maybe not even Anthony Davis or LeBron at this point. That's about all who can get to that shot. Maybe Wembanyama next year. Martin, this team is absolutely incredible, but I want to know what you have to say about the New Orleans Pelicans. As for the playoffs, though, This is what I said about the Grizzlies last year. Each team has their turn. Martin, I've said this time and time again on the Coin Flip podcast. I have my NBA key principles. This is one of them. A new team always has to go through some trial and error in the playoffs. They had their, kind of their first stage last year. This year, they're going to have it once again, probably in the second round. They're going to get bounced. And then the next year after that, watch the F out. Martin, what is your take on the New Orleans Pelicans?
I think the New Orleans Pelicans are an interesting team, and I think they're, obviously they're a fun team. I mean, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, you brought up Alvarez, you brought up Herb Thomas, you brought up CJ McCollum. CJ is going through a little bit of a rough stretch. He just isn't shooting the way he was shooting last year. But overall, I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans are a better team today because of the Anthony Davis trade, because it gave them all the draft capital. It gave them all the room to kind of rebuild this franchise. And, LeBron James, I forget the general manager for the New Orleans Pelicans. I apologize. It'll come to me. But the point is, they're a fun team. I mean, they're 18-11. They're exciting right now. They're showing how they can play good basketball. Let's see how they look towards the All-Star break. That's really going to be the determination factor to me. What you look like before the All-Star break and what you look like after the All-Star break, due to the fact that after the All-Star break, it's just a dead sprint to the playoffs. I think they're a definite playoff team. I think they'll revert back just a little bit down towards the standings. I don't think they'll stay in the top 3 when it comes to the final standings. I think right now they're just taking advantage of the fact that Golden State's not really that good in the West right now. Sorry.
Martin, Trishan Langdon is the general manager of the Pelicans now.
Why did Dan Gilbert? I'm thinking of Dan. I think he's basketball operations. Dan Gilbert, I know for a fact, is with the New Orleans Pelicans. But Dan Gilbert is a smart man when it comes to all that drafting. I think, like I said, I think the Pelicans are taking advantage of the fact that the Phoenix Suns are coming back a little bit. I mean, look at the bottom. I mean, you almost look at the bottom half of this entire Western Conference. The Warriors, the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Jazz, the Timberwolves, all teams that made the playoffs last year are not in the playoff picture at the current moment, or are barely in the playoff picture at the current moment. The fact that the Trailblazers, the Kings, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies are running the West is amazing to see. I think they fall amongst those teams, but I think New Orleans falls back later in the season, just not at the current moment.
Martin, Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cavs.
I'm so off today.
Yeah, the NBA, it's heating up. It's getting exciting. Christmas Day. Perhaps we could have talked about Christmas Day games. Those are coming up soon. But at the end of the day, those are just one game out of 82.
But those are going to be fun games.
Let's now talk about what?
I said those are going to be fun games.
Yeah. I'll make sure to watch my Lakers in action. Martin, let's end the cup. Now, Messi. Argentina. Martin, I'm going to start this off quick flash to the past. Martin, I can remember being in elementary school, being in 4th and 5th grade. And I remember this dude played soccer. His name was Nick. And I actually played soccer back then when I was actually that young. And I would play at recess sometimes. Messi was like super popular. This is way back in the day.
True.
Now, Messi is, 10, 12 years older. He's 35 now. And he's still just as popular, just as dominant in soccer. Martin, I know, I don't know anything about soccer, but I know that in soccer, dudes aren't at this level forever. Some guys will play a long time,
Right.
but you're not like best of the world caliber. You're not top five in the world at 35 in soccer. Like I know it can happen in the NFL and maybe in the NBA occasionally, but in soccer, like I don't think that's really the case. And for Messi to still be able to do that and survive an absolute, one of the best maybe single game performances in soccer history, for what Mbappe did, that's incredible. Shout out to Messi, he deserves it. And if it was borderline, if he was the GOAT or not before the World Cup, I mean, what else do you guys say? Messi is the GOAT.
Messi is the GOAT. There's no conversation about that at all. I think you talk about length with soccer players. It depends on the soccer player. I mean, obviously, you can have guys that can play 20, 30 years. Lewandowski is still playing. He played for his team, the Poland team, in the World Cup, and he got his first World Cup goal, and he's almost 40 at this point. Obviously, Ronaldo is, 36. Messi's 35. So, I mean, these guys are getting up in age, and Mbappe is the next wave of what a soccer player is. The interesting part of it is Messi and Mbappe are teammates on the same team. They play for PSG, which is Paris Saint-Germain, which is one of the top French teams in the world. So it was kind of fun to see, teammates go at each other trying to win the World Cup. I watched this from the moment it started until it ended, and it was so much fun to watch. 2-0 lead for Argentina all the way until half, and then France comes back and ties it. You got Messi with a penalty kick, with a penalty goal, and Mbappe had two of those. He had a hat trick in the game. Messi had a hat trick. They don't count penalty kicks as goals, but still, Messi had the 2 goals and the penalty kick, which is 3, so I consider that a hat trick. And, Di Maria had the goal for Argentina. It was so much fun to watch. I've watched every World Cup final since 2006, and this one lives right up with 2006, which also went in the shootout. It was just so much fun, Jacob, and it was exciting to watch. Messi is the GOAT. There's no conversation about it. There's no other need. Mbappe is on his way up there, but what Messi has accomplished in his career, man, I mean, finally he gets the freaking World Cup goal and the World Cup final and all that to top it all off. Messi is Messi, man. He's just that damn awesome.
Definitely from an outsider's perspective, it's wild to see a name like that repeat itself, and then all of a sudden he accomplishes like his greatest accomplishment ever. That was always my question with soccer. It's like, what is the Super Bowl in soccer? And this is it. He did it. Martin, is it every 4 years there's a World Cup?
Yeah, it's every 4 years. And the cool thing about it, Jacob, is next round of it will be in North America. So Canada, America, and Mexico are going to be hosting the World Cup in 2026. Mexico is going to be the first time a nation has hosted the Cup 3 times. Mexico hosted it in 70 and in 80, was it 84 or 86? 84 or 86, one of those mid-years in the 80s. So,
Mark, it's even bigger of a deal because if it's every 4 years, and if he were to do it again at age 39, he would no longer be the player he is now. There's just no way.
No.
So this was literally his last chance to still do it in the back end of his prime, and he got it done.
Well, he announced before the game this would be his final game with the team as well. So, I mean, he's been playing with the team since he was 18 years old. I mean, he's been basically the best player in Argentine history up until I forget his name. He'll come to me one day. But point is, Messi isn't going to come back. This was his final game. It was just so damn cool to see him go on top like this. I mean, going out like Peyton Manning style, like you get through the tough times, then you get to the World Cup, then you win the games, then you go to the final, then you win it. And Messi became the first player to score a goal in the round of 16, the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and in the World Cup finals. No other player has done that in the World Cup history. So Messi even writes even more history as he's playing. It's been so damn cool to watch him play, and it was just awesome to see the way he went out like that. That was just so damn cool.
Martin Kelly. I'm Jacob Zimmerman. This is the Coin Flip Podcast once again, talking some NBA and oh my god, some soccer. We got time for everything. Oh, Martin, there was the Mr. Olympia competition that I keep up with. You remember me talking about that last year?
What we talk about?
The Mr. Olympia, the bodybuilding.
Oh yeah. I remember we talked about
That
that.
happened again. Martin, there's a new champion.
Oh.
Yes, his name is Hadi Chupan. I will send you a picture of what that guy looks like later. But yes, that is the pinnacle of maxing out steroids to where you're about to die and getting down to 5% body fat. And
Nah, I'm good.
yeah,
It's amazing to see what those guys do. It's amazing to be that strong, but I'm good with my you know me. I'm good with my big belly. I don't feel like doing any of that stretching or lifting, man. I'm good sitting on the couch enjoying some fun and playing some video games. No thanks.
yeah, neither do I feel like blasting Trent. So that's Martin Kelly. I'm Jacob Zimmerman. And that's going to do it for the Coin Flip Podcast. Back at it again.